All right. Hello, everybody. We've got a great topic for today as the fourth installment out of 7 for building a rock-solid team. And I'm broadcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Periscope. So if you see me looking funny back and forth, that's why. So as a coach, as a career and executive coach and facilitator for close to 20 years, hey Raimundo, welcome. Thanks for joining in. So as having coached for 20 years and developed a lot of teams over the years, I'm sharing with you some high-level strategies and tips for that you as a leader can use to strengthen your team. So whether you were just assigned a brand new team or just got a new job or a rotation and you've inherited an existing team, or whether you have a team that's maybe not working very well or as optimally, I'm going to share with you some tips. And these are things that I use. These are tools and strategies I use to help get a team on track and get them aligned. Not that Pat, welcome. Thanks for joining in. Where are both of you from? Chime in where you're from. If you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, say hello. I'd love to see your comments. Can't always tell when someone's on here. All right. So, and I'm also going to share with you a sample of some values that I have for my organization. I'll just share that, but as well. All right. So, let's start with what are values. Okay. If we're talking about building like shared team values, we need to kind of define, well, what are they? And the way I define them are, beliefs or attitudes that we have about the world that we live in, right? We have, certain opinions and underlying core beliefs that we hold. These values generally are pretty stable over time, just like our personalities. They tend to remain true throughout your life. It doesn't mean that they don't change. They often can change, particularly as we go through different developmental stages of life, particularly as we have certain life experiences that impact us in a big way, right? Whether it's super negative, maybe it was a health scare, maybe it was something with a family, any number of, maybe we were laid off, something that might have shaken us to the core, might have shifted some of our values as well, like maybe one of them, but generally they're pretty consistent. And they reflect kind of the underlying meaning or importance that we attach to those beliefs or standards. So if we believe, for example, in respect, for example, like that is a core value, is to respect others, right? Well, underneath that, there's usually a certain meaning we attach, and there's also underlying needs and motivators and desires that we have that kind of underpin that particular value that we have, right? And these things are forms from when we're very young, and they're created in that way. So why is it important to be in touch with our values? Like, isn't that just mushy stuff? Touchy-feely stuff, right? Like, why are we even talking about this, Mike? Well, the thing is that whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or not, our values drive our behaviors. They lead to driving our emotions and our behaviors. So what we value, and so when we're misaligned, when you have a team that's misaligned, one of the places that you can look is kind of, okay, what what are our values here? Because that's something that unites all of us. And maybe we're operating on different belief systems, different things that are important. The values are the importance you put on certain beliefs, right? The relative importance. That's what makes it, right, a value or a core value, right? That's what we might have 50 values, but of those 50, we put more importance on some than others. And that's really what we're talking about here, or what are the top ones for our team. Okay, so again, they're invisible, but they drive the actions, and our behaviors reflect either our articulated values when we're in congruence, or when we're not in congruence, they reflect typically our underlying needs or motivators that aren't being met. Right, so it all ties in. Now I'm going to share with you. Hold on a moment. I'm going to share with you my screen here. And let's see. Oh, all right. I can share a specific tab. Aha. Okay. So what I have here, these are the high five. Hey, Roman, welcome. These are high five career coaching's values, but if you go to any company website, you'll see different values that they have. And again, these are espoused values. The key thing is, to what extent are you living them? And that's going to get into my tips. Hey, Reddy, welcome. So, all right. So here are the high five career coaching values. So one is integrity. And it's important that you define that for your team, because you may define integrity very differently than I do, or it might just be nuanced enough. So what you really want to do is define it as a team. And this is, again, high level. Ideally, you're going to operationalize your values. And what do I mean by operationalize? You're going to identify like actual behaviors that you would expect to see on the team that are reflective of the values. So for tonight, it's just going to be the high level. So integrity, impact. Can we make a positive difference in the lives of others? That's a type of impact. It's important to our team. Excellence. Okay, being known for quality and striving, right, to be the best we can be. Engagement. So developing those deep relationships with our clients, with our partners, with others. Learning and growing, right? That's what coaching is all about, and training is about development. Well, that's a core value. That's an expression. I mean, if you want to see alignment, that's an expression of that core value of learning and growth, is helping others learn and grow, right? Facilitating that for others. And courage, right? And that's a value of, hey, doing what's uncomfortable, pushing the comfort zone for ourselves as well as for our clients. So that's an example for you of, I'm not sure how I can kind of unshare now. There we go. Okay, so that's just an example of the high five values. And so I'm going to share with you some tips here. So what can you do for your team that you have? So, the first step is really to have your individual team members to facilitate this conversation, or there's different ways you can go about it. Have your individual team members identify their personal values. So that's a starting point. Okay. Starting point is Jane, Mo, Mary, Liza, whomever on your team, have them identify their values. You can do this through, there's card sorts out there with different values on them. There's assessments, there's values assessments out there, like the Barrett Values Inventory. There's a DISC you can get at values. There's different ways to get at kind of those values and motivators through pictures or images, right? There's ways you can get at that through stories that are inspirational. So there's a lot of ways you can extract values, and I've used all of those methods with teams. And if you're not sure how to do it or whatever, feel free to just message me or whatever. I'm happy to hop on a call with you. Or if you don't want to do it at all, you want to help, then we can talk further about that. But all right, so here are the tips. So identify that for the individuals. That's the first step. The second one is to facilitate some conversation, some dialogue around those. And what I like to say with alien eyes. So if there was an alien kind of looking down upon your team, what might they see? What might they think your team's values are just by observing, right? It's kind of using that anthropological perspective. Observing through the artifacts, that the things that your work environment looks like, or in this case with COVID, your home situation. What might they see? And the conversations, what you talk about, how you talk about it, all right, the verbals and non-verbals, right? And how things are addressed, what gets celebrated, what doesn't, all of those things. So are indicators of values. And how do you prioritize it? So everyone has their individual values, but what would they be willing, collectively as a team, what would you be willing to fight for? So if your team were penalized, this is a Jim Collins strategy. If your team were penalized, he wrote Built to Last, Jim Collins, Built to Last. If you were penalized for having that value, would you still keep it? Like if your company lost market share for holding on to that value, would you still keep it? Like for me, with integrity, it being one of my core values and doing the right thing, sometimes that means that I end up with the short end of the stick, and I'll still do it, right? Maybe it's giving a client their money back if they weren't happy. Now, fortunately, I haven't had to do that very much. I think they're twice in my 4 years, right? So sometimes it may hurt, but for you, honoring your word is more important. And so whatever the, kind of the integrity is for that. So whatever your values are. All right. And what would people be willing to fight for? So you can pit these values against each other. Okay? You can pit them against each other so that you can end up ideally with like your top 5 or 6. Once you start getting beyond that, then it's hard for people to remember. So the less you can have, the better. You can get it down. The third strategy is what are the triggers or hot buttons on the team? So many times when I'm working with a team, I'm looking for what are the lightning rod issues, because those tend to be indicators of what's important to people. Like they become lightning rod issues because they trigger our values, what we care about. Otherwise, why would we even engage? Right, one way or the other, why would we engage? So maybe there's a situation where the boss went along with a customer demand rather than backing up the team, and the team's in an uproar. Well, what's that about? Right? What that is about is maybe a team value is to be able to have each other's back. Okay, which is a good thing. Now, it might not feel like it when they're resisting, or there's some of this going on, right, on the team, and it might come out in indirect ways. But again, it's those hot button issues for your team, those triggers that can be indicators of team values, of shared values. So that's a tool. The fourth key is to really separate out, kind of filter out, what are the what I call aspirational values versus actual values. So many times, and this is, some of you might refer to them as wallpaper values versus street values, right? Kind of what happens in reality, right? So the aspirational values, they're fine to have, but those are things that we may not be fully living into those yet. Might be, this is what we want, but with alien eyes, you wouldn't know it. We're not acting as if that's important to us. And there could be a number of reasons why we're not, right? There might be outside pressures outside your team, right? There might be a lot of stress, and people behave differently when they're under stress oftentimes. So it looks like I lost my Periscope. Lost my power on that. Okay, I'll have to jump over to Facebook and LinkedIn or YouTube. All right, so that's key thing to filter that out and have a conversation around that, so you can do an honest assessment, like what is truly our actual values versus maybe what's aspirational. And it's okay, because as a leader, you may want to, for your hiring process, you might need to hire more people who value certain things more than others to take you in the direction you want to go as an organization, as a team. Yeah. So maybe the people that you've hired in the past value security, right? And they're not very big on change. They value stability and they value security. But what you need to be successful in the future is a team that's pretty agile, that values change. They like change, they initiate change, right? So maybe there's things you can do with your existing team to help them get there. Or maybe you need to start bringing in new team members over time that have that as one of their core values. There's different ways you can address it. And so the key thing is you want to have that balance between what's aspirational versus what's actual. So ideally you have that, it's one and the same, but it's okay if there's some separation, right? You put a plan in place to kind of get there. It's fine. And I kind of already spoken to the fifth tip, and that's to put your values within the context of your goals, of your future goals, of your desired culture that you want and that you feel you need to be successful, to be effective for the long run. And it's always helpful to have kind of that in context and a little bit of the why behind, like, why are these important to us? Why are they beneficial to the organization? So those are my thoughts. And Michelle, hello, how are you? So anything to add? Any questions, comments? So those are my tips for helping you get started, in terms of strengthening your team. All right. So thank you for watching. I will be back on again on Friday at noon, and I'll be interviewing one of my favorite colleagues, Pat Libby. She is a nonprofit. She's a leader in the nonprofit community in San Diego, and it's going to be a fun interview. And it's a new format. I'm going to ask like 5 questions. At least I'm going to start with 5, and so we're trying to keep it contained to maybe a 20-minute interview. We'll see how it goes. But join me at noon Pacific time on Friday. I'll be having that. And actually, I have a bonus one. It's actually a rescheduled one. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock Pacific time, I'll be interviewing a High Five team member, one of my High Five team members, Jewel Karanen, and you'll get to see a little bit behind the scenes. She does a lot behind the scenes for my organization. So tune in at 2 o'clock tomorrow, or look out for the replay. And love to get your comments or questions or whatnot. So there's a couple of live interviews this week to look forward to. And thank you all for watching. And if this was of value to you, I encourage you to share this out with your Facebook friends or your LinkedIn connections, or YouTube. Send them the link if you're watching on YouTube. I really encourage you to share these out. Next Tuesday, I'll be speaking to creating a shared vision for your team. I believe that's the topic for next week. So today was the 4th installment of a 7-part series. So if you missed the other ones, then scroll back to the prior Tuesdays in the feed, and you'll be able to find those. All right. So thank you all, and hope to see you soon.